computer. Good morning, everybody. We're really excited to have you on today. I just wanted to thank our AWT RoboBots committee for putting together this kickoff. We have a new addition to our AWT team, Stevie Dome, who he made a great welcome video. So I'm going to begin sharing that. That has a lot of components today for that. And I'm really excited. We have Ron Maurer live today and Colin Cutts live today as part of the kickoff as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share the video that Stevie made, and it's going to go through the first 3 items on the agenda.
Hey, all you RoboBots teams out there. My name is Juliana Petty, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Alliance for Working Together Foundation, or AWT as we call it. AWT is a local nonprofit all devoted to promoting rewarding manufacturing careers. And I absolutely love our history. It's super grassroots. Our founder, Roger Sistar, is the CEO of Freedom Corporation. And he got a group of local manufacturing companies together back in 2002. And they really started talking about, why can't we get young people excited about going into the manufacturing industry? So they met a few times to share best practices and talk about that issue, and it just kept coming back to the fact that we need local talent to come into our industry. So they decided to found AWT, and since 2002 we now have grown to over 500 local manufacturing companies, schools, and community organizations all working together to promote rewarding manufacturing careers. A lot of people always ask, hey Juliana, why is manufacturing important, or why is AWT focused on manufacturing? And manufacturing is really a leading industry throughout Northeast Ohio. A lot of people have what we call the manufacturing stigma of being dark, dirty, and dangerous, but that's just not true anymore. Modern day manufacturing is high-tech, exciting, innovative, and very well sustaining jobs that people can have. So with Northeast Ohio in the leading manufacturing industry, we have more than 5,000 manufacturing companies just in our Northeast Ohio region alone. So it's really a great opportunity for students to get a great job at good wages and continue on with education in the future. A lot of people think manufacturing is dark, dirty, dangerous, and a dead-end career, but we know that's just not true in modern day manufacturing. Modern day manufacturing is high-tech, innovative, exciting, clean, and safe. The AWT RoboBots program was designed to excite young people about modern day manufacturing. How the program works is that we get local area high schools and we partner them up with local manufacturing industry sponsors. And the teams meet semi-weekly or weekly to build a 15 combat robot from scratch. That's right, a 15-pound combat robot. And really this gives students the excitement factor of building robots. If you've ever seen BattleBots, our competition is exactly like that, and it's inspiring the excitement for the industry.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm from Lake Catholic, and I build robots here at Freedom for the AWT Robotics Program. I joined because I love learning hands-on skills and bringing those skills into action. And I love working together with people, and everyone's ideas get put into the robot one way or another.
In our RoboBots program, it's not just about designing a robot that's awesome. It's also about making sure that students learn the engineering documentation process. So we've basically built in a documentation process for the RoboBots program because we rate students on best documentation. During this process, students will do things like the bill of materials, they'll share their engineering notes, talk about cost analysis. At the end, it becomes really like a 20-page document of documentation where students are getting all of that information and putting it in one place. And the really neat part that we have about this is that students are actually judged on their documentation by industry experts. So engineers from Parker Hannifin, Swagelok, Eaton Corporation, Component Repair Technologies, Freedom Corporation, and many more. They're able to go in and really see if the students have what it takes to be an engineer. So a lot of people think that competition day is that Saturday at the end of April every year, but the other important day that we have is interview and safety check day, which is the day before that Friday. And during safety check day, students obviously have built a 15-pound combat robot, and we want to make sure safety is our #1 concern, so they go through a rigorous safety check, and they're also doing their interviews in front of local area experts and going over the entire build process as well as their documentation process, and the industry experts score them, and they're able to win best interview for this piece of the competition. The AWT competition day is such an awesome day. It's so exciting, culminating all the manufacturers and high schoolers all together. The biggest thing that we always want to stress is that this is just the icing on the cake. And the cake is really having all of the high schoolers and the manufacturing companies come together and having a great experience with all the students learning the technical skills, the interpersonal skills, and potentially getting a job after the competition. So the competition is icing, and of course we want to root for our favorite teams and everything we're doing, but we always want to remember the sportsmanship and excitement that we have in that way, that we've already done so much with the competition. So what competition day looks like is you'll see the brackets on our AWT RoboBots page the morning of the competition. So you can go ahead and tune in live if you want to watch the competition or come to the events and see your favorite team. So you'll be able to see the brackets online, and then the students are able to come and compete with their robots for a 3-minute head-to-head match. It is a double elimination match, so if your team gets knocked out once, that's all right. They'll still be okay. So go ahead and join us in rooting for your favorite team on competition day.
A tip I would give to someone joining is always communicate, ask questions, because no question is a bad question, and try to learn as much as you can because it's a great experience that you'll remember for the rest of your life.
Hello everyone, my name's Zach Pijor. I'm a member of the robotics team Hooligans, and I've come here to tell you a little bit about myself and just about robotics and why I love it in general. I do robotics because, most importantly, I find it fun and engaging. When I grow up, I plan on being an environmental scientist or just a steward of the environment, someone who looks after it and takes care of it. I find it incredibly important. However, I am sitting here in a club that is usually, brought together by mechanical engineers and circuitry experts, et cetera, and why would I be engaging in something like this? Well, because most importantly, I find it to be incredibly exciting and engaging and an interesting opportunity. I've been a part of robotics for 5 years now, and I've loved every bit of it. I love going to the meetings. I love enjoying time with my friends and the friends that I've made there, putting things together and making things work. I think that whenever you're taking part on a journey in a hobby or really anything, it's important that you have fun with it. And that's why I do AWT robotics, because it's enjoyable, because it's fun, and it's a good time. And there are a lot of returning members, which welcome back, or new members, or even people who are looking to join right now who might be watching this. And they might be looking for advice, or they're interested in it, but they just don't know how quite to get into it. And if I were to give any piece of advice in my 5 years of experience, I would say, if you find something interesting or enjoyable that you want to put into your project, go for it. Absolutely. In my opinion, the best part about robotics is overall making a good robot and having a good time. And if you can find a way to incorporate having a good time into your strategy, if you come up with a design that you just think is a grand slam of an idea and you think it's worthy of being put together, put it together. Don't doubt yourself. Just give it a go, give it a try. It's most important when you experiment with things and you come up with ideas that you think are influential or important, because if you put enough time and hard work into it, it's likely that it'll blossom into something beautiful. I've done that with a lot of projects in AWT myself, whether it be team leadership or working on documentation or even building the bot. Sometimes I would do that. And if I was able to find a way to put something together that looked cool and I had a good time doing it and it was sound and really all the puzzle pieces fit together, I made it happen. And that's everything from me.
All right. Hi, my name is Julie Hildebrand. I'm an engineer And I've been working with Kenston for 6 years now, and before that I worked with Beaumont for a while, and then before that Cleveland Heights. So this is my 12th year going into bots. So I like to talk today about documentation, both for the high school and the junior bots, and I'll kind of mix them in. The first thing I want to do is really suggest that you have a checklist of where your documentation is, especially for the high school. There's a lot, and so keeping track of where you are on all of them is really key. So my first slide is just an example of how we do it. We list all of the different elements, and then we go towards that and just look at where are we, who's supposed to do it, is it on track, that sort of thing. So I found it to be extraordinarily helpful for us. Okay, so I'm just going to now go through each of the different elements and kind of talk about when it should be done, when to do what it is, and kind of some suggested guidelines of what to put in it. The first one, so under design motivation, the first one is influences. This is how your team was influenced by, to pick the bot that they did. So it's the documentation of what influenced you to pick this particular bot design. I would suggest to do this at the beginning, after you've done your initial design work. If you wait, you might forget. At the beginning, after you've picked your bot design, it's still fresh in your mind. Some suggested content is doing like a lesson learned from if you've been in the bots before, doing lessons learned, like what worked well with your bot, what didn't work well, what you see on other bots, and figuring out what should be done better, or what you'd like to continue to do and what you would like to make better. If you have not done bots, looking at your YouTube videos, look at AWT past competitions. Almost all of them are loaded. Watching BattleBots on the TV. This gives you a really good idea of what works and what doesn't. So that is really helpful. And then doing other research, talk to other players, figuring out at your weight class what works well. For example, we found that at 15 pounds, a full body spinner did not work like it did at BattleBots because it's 100 pounds versus 15 pounds. Okay, so this is an example of lessons learned. Then this is from Beaumont. The team, so you can see some of the things that they were looking at when they were saying, hey, what worked, what didn't. Design decisions, the fact that 15 pounds is a challenge. I mean, that really, bears a weight with everyone. Spare parts, batteries, motors, like what are you going to use? So that they discuss that every year. This is some more. Appointing a repair manager would help. Try to finish 4 to 6 weeks early so you can test. I can't stress that test enough. And then just the required documentation. So this is some of the things that they put in. They also did like identification of a problem, build the most, what did they want to do? Like what was their goal? So when you're looking at influences, also look at what do you want to do? Okay, so this is another part of your lessons learned and your research methods. You have to decide what your goal is for your bot. Do you want it to be really aggressive? Do you want it to be fast? Do you want it to be really powerful? This is also part of your influences. So this is what Beaumont put together. For team management, this is basically your meeting minutes, and do not leave this to the end. This needs to be done after every single meeting. Take pictures at the meeting, put them in folders that have dates on them. You can put the photos in later, but really making sure that you've documented what went on in that meeting, who was there, the date, it's going to be really key. It's very, very difficult to go back and try and do meeting minutes afterwards, and it's pretty easy ongoing. So just make sure you have someone doing those meeting minutes all the time. Some suggested content, what topics you discussed, what you did. Obviously the team members that were in attendance, you can have a template that have all the people on there and you just have to check them off. It's really pretty easy. Any actions that came out of the meeting, and another suggestion is that you can take those actions and actually put those on your project schedule so you can keep them in front of you and make sure that they're done. And then any pictures from the meeting. So this is an example of our meeting minutes. It's actually two pages because we do include the pictures on it as well. But you can see we have a list of all our members, and they're checked off. We have a date. We say what we talked about and any actions that came from the meeting. For material management, this is basically a demonstration of how you decided, or why you decided to pick particular materials and how they're used. Basically, when you want to do this is when you're selecting the material. Like, this is an ongoing thing. Make sure and document it. It's harder at the end. You can do it, but it's not. You forget a lot over the season. But this is really how all the materials relate together, where they're used in your system, and like, why did you pick titanium? Why did you pick aluminum? Why did you pick steel? Is it heavy? Is it too heavy? Is it too expensive? What were your trade-offs that made you decide this is the way you wanted to do it? Okay, the next one is an accounting budget. This is basically a list of all of your receipts. And then any of donations you got, any fees that you have, any money coming in and out, essentially your credits and debits. This, I would suggest also that you keep track as your receipts come in. You can do it at the end as long as you keep all your receipts somewhere, but it's a lot easier to do it as you go. So some of the suggested content, as I said, money you started with, any donations, any club fees, purchase orders, receipts, anything that you spent money on. So that's really what you're looking for a budget. This is an example of part of a budget. You start off, what did you start off with left over from the previous year? Some dues paid in, donations. So this is what you start with. And then you start debiting from there. I bought some motors. I bought some tools. I bought a shelving unit. These all count towards your budget. And then it can, I would make up an Excel spreadsheet and just have it automatically just subtract from your overall quantity. The next thing you need to do is time management. So this is basically a project schedule. There are a lot of ways you can do this. You can use Microsoft Project, you can use Excel. Certainly Microsoft Project gives you better looks into what things have to be done before other things, so you get a good critical path. Excel might be easier to use. Either way, it's really just what are the actions that have to be done throughout the season. When this should be done, this should be done at the very beginning, and you should actively update it all the time. Especially, when you get meeting minutes and you get actions from your meetings, you should add those to your project schedule so you can keep it all in front of you. You know who's doing what. I strongly suggest that you have one person responsible. There may be multiple people actually working on something, but you really need to have one person responsible so that you know that it's going to get done. The suggested content show the action, who is responsible to do it, estimated completion time, status, if you're waiting on some other thing, or if you're on hold, or if you're in progress, or you completed. Keep all those so that you can filter and just see the things that are right in front of you right now. These are some of the the steps that you might see to start off. Brainstorm the design of the bot, order the parts, build the bot, test the bot, rework the bot. So these are kind of things, documentation, that kind of thing. Those are some of the actions that you'll see on your project schedule. So this is from Beaumont, and this is what they do. They use Microsoft Project or project planning. And they actually, look at all the tasks and say which ones are dependent on other tasks, and so that's really helpful because then you can see which ones have to get done early that might affect something way down the line. There are other things that can be done at any time. So, for example, you really need to purchase your parts before you can build the bot. However, you can get your t-shirts really anytime, because you only need them at the end. So that's why like a Microsoft project or some kind of project planning tool is helpful versus Excel. The next thing is under design process, research methods. So this is, okay, you were influenced to design your bot this way, that's what you wanted to do. Now, how did you research it? How did you figure out exactly what you needed to do? You want to start this after the initial design determination, because that's when you start doing research. But you do want to go on and actively update it, because maybe you're doing more research on what kind of motors are the best motors. Are you doing some calculations there? Are you looking up different batteries that you can use? Are you looking up different motor controllers and what's available and what's not available? So all the research that you do throughout the season, you want to keep updating that. Some suggested content, list all research that you've done. So I would strongly suggest that you document this as you do it, because otherwise it's going to be lost forever. Show different designs that were considered. You can even show a picture of, a whiteboard drawing or on a white paper, whatever you need, really. And any results of brainstorming sessions, that kind of thing as well. So this is also from Beaumont, an example of how they researched the problem. So each team member evaluated designs for strengths and weaknesses, and then we met with other teams and other team members, looked at lessons learned. We also looked at like the YouTube videos of AWT and see what worked and what didn't. And so you can see this is an example of their brainstorming the design of the solutions, and they're actually pictures of drawings that they thought about and culled through to see what came up as the best bot. The next section, the next element is CAD Models. So this will come from SolidWorks or whatever CAD application you use. Your sponsor may be a great deal of help here as well. These are the 3D models. So what does your bot look like on the computer? This is also extremely helpful for determining your weight before you actually have all the parts and have it put together. So I strongly suggest to do this right after the main design is finalized. You can go back and change it for sure, but do it early so that you can keep track of your weight and it's calculated. So that's extremely helpful. Refinement. So this is basically, what are the changes that you made to your bot as you went? Part of this is doing a risk analysis and figuring out what might go wrong, but also through testing as well, and just all the little tweaks and maybe not so small tweaks that you had to do. We had last year where we turned on our bot for the first time, and the weapon hit the floor and it bent in half. So we had to take a step back and go, okay, we need to update our weapon, and so we had to build a weapon very quickly. So it just all depends on what happens, but you want to document these as you go, as they happen. It's very helpful. I would also suggest as a risk analysis. You can use failure modes and effects analysis. It's a very common template. You can Google it and you'll find templates out there. It's a very good way of looking at all your risks and figuring out which ones are the biggest risks and mitigating them. So it's a great way to systematically look at all your risks and figure out which ones you really need to pay attention to and take action to correct. And as I said, list the refinements and changes as you go. So this is an example of our failure modes and effects analysis from one of our years, and you can see that you write down absolutely everything that you think is going to go wrong, and then you rate them. And this will give you which ones you really need to worry about, and then it shows what you did to mitigate the risk. So it's very helpful. I would not wait until the end to do this because it is extremely helpful from the standpoint of how to make your bot more reliable, which we all know is very important. The next element is structural analysis. The pros and cons of your bot design. Like, why did you choose this chassis design? Why did you choose this material for it? And you can do this really at any time. I recommend doing all documentation as early as possible. So the earliest I would say is once you get your bot designed and built is when you should be doing this structural analysis. Suggested content analysis of the chassis. What is a strength and what is a weakness? The judges are really looking for did you really think about what your design should be? The design process for engineering drawing sets, again, this is in CAD. These are your build drawings. They'll have the dimensions on them. They're not 3D, they're flat. And they tell you, they will tell a machinist or someone how to build what you need built. So that's what's really important here. When you should do this should be done. This is something that you need to do anyway to be able to get your parts built. So this is pretty early on. Once you know what your design is, you should be working with your sponsor to get these drawings done so that they know what needs to be built and the specifics of it. Okay, next element is weapon systems details. So this is really looking at, the judges want to see an analysis. Do you know why you chose your weapon? What's the SWOT analysis of it? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities and threats? So this is fairly near the end, just because you really need to wait until your bot is fairly built and a little bit tested as well. Suggested content is, what are your strengths of your weapon? What are your weaknesses of your weapon? But more importantly, what are the opportunities? So how is your driver going to take advantage of the strengths of your weapon? So this is really, I would suggest the driver write this one because they need to be fully aware of why they're doing what they do in the battlefield. And then threats. How do you neutralize the weaknesses of your weapon? So this is also, the driver really needs to be thinking of, this is your strategy for winning. Same thing with drive system details, and we'll also for power system details. This is your driver, what's your strategy, how are you taking advantage of your strengths of your drive system, your wheels, all the drive, as part of the drive system. How are you taking advantage of your strengths? Are you really fast? So you need to, take advantage of that. So if you're slower but more powerful, how do you take advantage of those and then mitigate the not being as fast? So it's really about figuring out how your driver should take care of the drive system. And then the power system, why did you use the batteries you use? And again, doing a SWOT analysis, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, and how do we take advantage of the strengths and how do we mitigate the threats? One of the last ones is a wiring schematic. So this is basically a diagram of your circuitry. This needs to be done after design, so you can do this fairly late. I would suggest Googling. There are apps out there that will that you can use for free, that you can build this circuitry drawing on. I think Visio, you can also do it in Visio, and you can do it in CAD, but there are also free software online if you don't have those. So you just need to Google it. But it's basically, you know, your motors, your batteries, your motor controller, your receiver, how does that circuitry work? And then this is an example of a schematic that you might see. Okay, and then finally, your testing results. So throughout, you should be testing it. And so after you build your bot, you test it, make sure that it's reliable, test it for aggression and reliability, and you know whether the motor works or the weapon works as you expected. You should be using the scientific method. You should be doing more than one test. At least 10 tests of any given thing. What is your speed? That kind of thing. Do as many tests as you can. This always runs very late. We suggest that you start this like 4 to 6 weeks before the end, but that almost never happens. But as you test, make sure and document your quantifiable results, and make sure you say what you thought the hypothesis is, and then what the results were, and also noting what corrective action you might need to take based on the test.
Okay, so that was from Julie. Julie, we really appreciate you helping us from that, and Beaumont as well for sharing their best practices. So next, I'm really excited. We have Ron Maurer from ATEC to talk about the build process. And Ron, I'm going to pull up your slides here, and then that way you can go through your presentation. So let me just pull up your slides. And then Ron, it's all you.
Okay, great. Can you hear me? I think I got it off of mute.
Yeah, we can hear you.
In any case, I'm Ron Maurer from the ATEC coach. And the bots, we might be doing a little different than some of the other teams in the fact that we are a career center. So we are building all of the component parts that can be built in our lab. So we are busy at doing that. And if you want to, so there is our bot with the cover off, and it might look very complicated, but it really isn't, especially to the new teams. But we're just building a part at a time. We're designing it. And if you flip to the next page there, Juliana, we'll talk about those parts there. This should be something that is led by the team. And we want to start talking about, and actually Julie already has talked about the research needed and what kind of bots you want to build, what is your weapon of choice, all of those things. If we can include all of the team members and do some brainstorming sessions on there, I think that's so important to make sure that the team is involved in every aspect of this build. So after we've got a decision made of what kind of bot we're going to build, do we want it to be 4-wheel drive? Do we want it to be able to flip upside down? Or if it gets flipped upside down, will it drive upside down? Will it, and just go through all those variables in the design stages so that we know what we want. And what kind of weapon do we want? Could be some of the decisions about, do we want a spinning weapon? Do we want it to spin up? Do we want it to spin down? And you know what, if you're not talking about a spinning weapon, what kind of choices do you have? Well, you know, we've talked about a chainsaw chain going all the way around the robot. There's all kinds of different options, and no idea ought to be thrown out as useless or laughed at by other team members. We ought to be taking every one and then choosing those decisions as a team. And what a great way for students to realize that. And if you have a silly idea, if you share it, someone else might take part of that silly idea and twist it around and make it a better idea, which allows you to have the best of a bot. My personal belief, and I think it's important that we look at every idea and then as a team decide which is the best idea. No one person comes up with the best idea. It's got to be a team effort. So if you can flip to the next one, Juliana. And so as we start to do the build, there needs to be a couple decisions made. What items need to be made by the members? And I probably will refer, as we go through this small PowerPoint, members meaning the students. What items can they make? And I will say, I want us to build every part possible that they can build. I think the more we can get our students to build the parts, the better ownership in that project there is. So I want my students building as much as possible. I want to challenge them on each thing so that we can continue to increase that and do as good as possible. Also, which items do we need to purchase? What are lead items? One of the things that and I guess I'll get that in the next PowerPoint, but we need to figure out what things we need to purchase, and those long lead items, can we get those ordered soon so that we make sure that they are there when we need it, okay, and we don't have to wait for them. There are complex parts on there, but every robot has parts that are not complicated as well. And if we can allow each student to be challenged at their own levels, it's so important, because I think that every student has something they're bringing to the table. And if not, we as coaches or as advisors ought to come up with something to make it important so that each one at their own levels can be challenged. I think I'm probably speaking to coaches and to the advisors more than anyone else, but I think that's an important part for us. Okay, go ahead and flip to the next one. Electronics. It seems like to me that the electronic parts are, you think you're going to order those and, well, you know what, we're going to wait till most of the bot is built. Well, if you do that, you'll find very quickly that the motors become obsolete, they're out of stock, you can't wait for them, we have to look for alternate ones. So we need to get those electronics ordered as quick as possible. Again, we have to build around those components. And so if we don't get those parts in and we have too late of a time, there's a good possibility that teams could get, so they can't compete because they don't have the proper drive or electronic parts. So we want to get those electronic parts ordered as quick as possible, build around them, select your batteries. On our batteries, a lot of times in fact, every year we are building our own batteries. I remember our first year, and this is our 9th year we're getting into, but our first year we ended up with batteries from Home Depot that were for dry, or they were the cordless drive components that you'd get those batteries off a DeWalt, and we would take those and cut off the shell and start using them. But you can use what you need to, but as long as you're following the requirements on the NRL rules. But we have found that we're going to Bulldog batteries, and I'm not advertising for them. I'm just saying that they are a company that can put together batteries for you guys as well if you're interested in trying to find batteries. And we actually arrange our cells in a way that we want them to fit into our bot, and then solder them together appropriately and heat shrink them together. So it's one way that you can do that. Go ahead and flip to the next slide, please. Timeline. Every team's going to be a little bit different. Everyone's going to do it a little bit differently. But I think the real key that we need to be aware of is that we need to make sure that our bots are ready and durable and tested. And the only way to do that is the sooner we can get that bot up and running, the better it is. You can see these two robots that are already completely put together. Well, guess what? We aren't testing ours with the shell on it. We're testing it as soon as we have 4 wheels on it, so that we can make sure that it can move around a little bit. And then once the weapon's able to be spun, we're gonna work with that and we're gonna hit some things with that robot before it gets into that match. We do have an arena at ATEC, and I'd be more than happy to stay after school if somebody wanted to come in and test their robots. We can make that available, as well as I'm sure Freedon would make that available with their cage. But get it in there and get it tested. Get the team to look it over, try to debug it as soon as you can and throughout the process, which gives it more time to verify things are going okay. Again, once you get a robot completely put together, you're good to go, but at the same time, if it'll run. So we want to make sure it's able to run throughout the whole process. Go ahead and flip to that next one, please. And then the testing side of that, the team members, we are practicing changing parts. We don't want to wait till the competition. Oh, it's so easy for I'm a hands-on guy. I want to be grabbing parts and changing them myself, but realistically, I've got to hand those tools over, let my students do the tearing that thing apart, putting it back together, and practicing keeping my hands behind my back, because when we get to the competition, we want the students to do all of the work. And the only way that's going to happen is as if we have them already experienced at doing it. And so they are already familiar with changing out the parts, changing the batteries, and checking it over and over and over again. And guess what? If they're going to see that there's some problems, guess what? They're going to be able to resolve those problems a whole lot easier if they're already experienced at doing that. I like to keep records of things, just like, and not necessarily for the documentation, but it's a good thing to put in the documentation, is, we have a series of batteries. I can't just live with one battery, because it takes sometimes up to an hour to charge a battery. So I'm going to have, we're going to have several batteries. So how long does each battery last in the robot? Can I run the weapon and the drive system wide open for the whole 3 minutes that the matches are, or does the battery fail on us in 2 minutes? We want to make sure we get those testings done. Obviously, if we're building all those parts as we weigh the bot with different parts on it, it could be over the 15-pound weight limit. So we want to make sure that we are prepared to lighten the spare parts if we need to, or be prepared to make that thing weigh. And obviously, I want to be right on 15 pounds every time we go to test at the competition. So weight with the spare parts is important. And then again, major components. How long does it take you to change one of those major components? When you get to the match and, man, all of a sudden your weapon bends, as it was mentioned earlier, or we sheared off a belt. How long is it going to take you? Well, the sheared belt, if it takes you too long and you have to forfeit a match, it probably needs to be decided, well, I'm going to have to go out there without a weapon this time and try to change it after the next match, or whatever the case is. But I just think that it's important for students to get familiar with that bot as much as possible. And obviously, the more driving time for practicing you can do, the better off it's going to be for your team. Again, I hope it's a fun and exciting time for everyone this year, and I'm looking forward to it. Sometimes I wonder who has more fun, the students or myself, because it is a great opportunity, a great adventure to be a part of the robot competition, and I'd be happy to help. Again, it's not all about winning. It's about taking that robot that you have built and get it into an arena and drive it around and feel satisfied with something that your team has built. Is there any questions someone might have?
So Ron, I'll start us off with the first question, but for all those that are watching online, you have the chat box that you can go ahead and put questions in, and I'll read them live to Ron, and we'll also do that for Colin as well. So feel free to put your questions in the chat box. And then Ron, the first question I have for you is, what happens, what advice do you give to a team? They go to the safety check the Friday before and their bot just falls apart. What do you do from there? What is your build strategy that you would say if something like that happens?
Don't panic. First of all, take it back to your table and do whatever you can to get it to work. Call on some of the other teams to try to help. I would be happy if you came over to my table and said, hey, we have this problem. We have some years of experience under our belts, and it's not like it's top secret. We want all the teams to prepare, but not only prepare, but we want them to be able to compete when it gets to the competition. So I don't think there's anything that, we can't try to help other teams through as well.
Yeah, and Ron, just to piggyback off what you were saying, for all the teams listening in, Freedon has Scott Rebeck, who's a great person. He knows a lot about electronics, and he's helped a lot of teams last year for the competition, and he's happy to do that as well. And then Rich Ditto at Freedon, he is often one of the safety check people that helps with that, but he's happy to help troubleshoot. And don't wait until that day. We're all resources here. You can email me, or you can email Rich or Ron or Colin and say, hey, we're having this problem. We're really a community here. So like Ron said, it's, it is a competition, and we want to do well, but we want to see all of the kids succeed. And we're happy to do that.
Right.
All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions come through at the time, but I guess another question that I have is, do you have any, I know you mentioned the company with the batteries, do you have any other, companies that you've gone to and you've gotten really great parts from or anything like that?
I really like the BaneBot gearboxes. They have planetary gears in them. They seem to be very robust. So I really do like the BaneBot gearboxes. Other than that, we struggle every year with motors. Again, we're building our bot from scratch every year because technically it's a senior class project for us. So we're building it, all the entire parts every year. So I guess that's all I have on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. And then the last question that I have too is, I know a lot of teams have struggled making sure that their batteries are strong enough for propelling their bot and the weapon. So is there any advice you have on that, whether it's the batteries themselves or the way you guys wire them that you found was really helpful?
There is actually something that we do that maybe is, I hope I'm not giving out a trade secret here, but we make sure that our weapon is able to be controlled by a separate person. And by doing that, we don't run we program it into the radio so that we can run at 50% or something like that until until we're ready to hit a robot. And when we're ready to hit it, then we put it in and let it go. But we probably can't even make it a whole 3 minutes with the drive system and the and the weapon running the entire time.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. That's super helpful. I mean, I just know that's something a lot of people struggle with the build process. So Ron, thank you so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. And, you know, being an Ashtabula girl, it's really cool to see AWT always on top with the build. So great job.
Thank you. Well, it's a privilege to be a part of the AWT. Thank you for all you guys are doing. Sure appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it. And now, Colin, I'll go ahead and spotlight your video. And we're excited to welcome Colin Cutts. He's the Vice President of G&T Manufacturing. He's an AWT board member, and he's not only sponsoring one team this year, but two. So Colin's the man when it comes to sponsorship. So go ahead, and it's all you, Colin.
All right. Morning, everybody. So I'm Colin Cutts. I have G&T Manufacturing. We're located in Mentor, Ohio. We're down the street from Freedon. I've been doing RoboBots now for probably gotta be about 6 years now. We originally started with Riverside. This year we started to pick up Kenston, and I've literally spent the past 2 weeks as a sponsor trying to clear all of my production schedule out here so I can be more available to both of these teams now at this point in time, as I also teach on top for AWT for the apprenticeship cohort programs. So one of the things with being a team sponsor is you have to be engaged as a sponsor. I mean, writing a check to a school or to the organization, that's great. But a lot of these teams, what they really need is they need the expertise from that shop level. They really need somebody who knows how to make these parts, needs an engineering staff and a team that knows how to build this complete robot, not just the electronic side of it, which is its own challenge by itself, but even just so that you can get these students onto the machining centers and open your doors as a machine shop to show them, as Juliana had stated in the video that you all saw, that machine shops aren't this dirty, unsafe place. We're packed with technology. Over here at G&T, we mainly run 4 robotic cells, and we run some large pallet changing systems here. So we truly run lights out over here. So it's very interesting for the teams to get to see this kind of technology. But as a sponsor, we also let the students get their hands directly onto this technology at that time, whether it be taking them based upon where they are in their years at high school. We get everybody involved at different levels. We have everybody get involved on the design level. Then we have them work with us on the CAD CAM and 3D modeling. Then we take them from that, and our more senior students that have been with us for a few more years, we will usually have them go ahead, then they will participate in the actual physical CNC machining of these parts. And I'll have them come in on Saturdays, and we will shut our shop down, pull all of our production run stuff off our machines, and dedicate that time just to the students so that they can have that experience by picking out the tooling, setting up the jobs, running it out. Then myself and my team here at G&T, we will usually, after they leave, spend somewhere between the next 3 or 4 hours finishing their parts that are set up at that point in time that they couldn't finish. And then we'll go ahead and we'll reset up our production work from there. So we're ready to go again on Monday morning as a functioning machine shop. So that's what I mean, that these sponsors really need to be engaged in the students. I mean, this is supposed to be a full experience, and that's what we try to achieve. We also here at G&T, we offer internships to all of our students who are seniors. And if there's any juniors that would want to in our group, we always offer it to them as well. Come in for the summer to look at an internship. We go ahead and we open that up for them so they can come in and help work directly with me. And we design fixturing, we work on new processes, we work on new components and parts that we're machining over here at G&T, whether that's aerospace, firearms, or even getting down to simple parts that go on to forklifts or on your standard John Deere tractors. We're kind of involved in everything. We are a true job shop over here. So we've never kind of looked back from being a sponsor. We've always found it to be fun. I mean, there is a large cost to sponsoring the team, but the advantage we kind of gain is most of the employees we have, our team members here, they'll actually volunteer their time because they have a lot of fun doing that with us as well. I have a lot of guys here that they compete in drone leagues, and they also compete with like off-road remote control cars. Some of them do dirt bike racing. So we have the gambit of mechanical and electrical, we'll say, aptitude on our staff here to help us out with all that. I myself was never into any of that electronics part of it, but my staff's able to help us out there. So one of the big things that I've been asked before is what is that time commitment from a sponsor? And when you heard, I said, we'll spend an extra 4 hours sometimes resetting up our machines. It just depends how committed to the project the sponsors are to really gain what you're going to do with your timeline there. So if you're design and machine the parts in your off time, then you don't have a lot of time with the students, taking that time with your engineering staff and making sure the students are safe and machining all these parts. I know that ATEC and Auburn, they have a pretty large advantage. Most of their students are already in the manufacturing program. So they're very well versed in what they're doing. And it is nice that you can make that part of the curriculum. But for the rest of us that don't have it, is that you kind of want to make sure you have a sponsor that's on board. And like I said, been clearing the last 2 weeks so that I can help out with Kenston and with Riverside this year and make it a success program for both of those teams again this year. So the one big thing is that when this is all done, we just want to make sure that everybody had fun. You learned something about manufacturing, even if it is you've just learned what it's like to see the parts get machined, different tool paths, different approaches, how we manufacture the parts, or just the experience. If you learn something from the experience and the teamwork and the camaraderie of working with an entire group to finish a project, that's still a skill set that can be applied across everybody's future. You don't have to be in manufacturing to understand to work on a team. You could be in anything. You could be in an office. You can be working even in something as easy as everybody always defers to Amazon nowadays with their warehouse. Communication's key. If you can't work on a team and understand that the team might have a different idea than what you have and how to approach your idea and explain your idea to someone to make it successful or why you think it's successful, that communication is the key thing we try to drive here, is that everybody has a voice, and then we set it up as a democracy. We voted based upon success and failure rates of looking at it. And that's what we do to create a successful program here. Now, there's been times we haven't got the bot running right. It's gone in the arena and it's gotten hit and it's broke the motor. But again, like Ron said, the big thing is that the success is that the team works together and you finish the robot and you have a working bot when you get there. The competition, although trophies and awards and everything are really nice, we always try to focus on getting the bot there and how the teamwork and the experience work the entire way through. And through 6 years, I think Riverside last year was 3rd place. So that was successful for them. It's taken us 6 years to climb our way up that ladder, but it was definitely had its challenges with COVID last year. That added a whole new element for everybody, especially us, because as we are a defense contractor with all the COVID specifications, we had to make sure that we didn't really let anybody in our building at that time because we couldn't have any extra exposure. So we did our entire robot via Zoom last year. So all the design was done via Zoom. The students from Riverside downloaded Fusion 360, which is what we use here, all the Autodesk products. And we went ahead and they collaborated by utilizing our full license of Fusion 360, and they were participants to design the entire robot within our entire system here over at G&T. And we designed and stayed on top of the project that way through collaborative design, which was a completely new spin for us even last year. So it gave everybody a new experience on how we could all work together because everybody could edit the design freely. So everyone had their own change they could put in, and we had to be careful things didn't get changed too much because otherwise it would we couldn't revert back. We'd have to go back through a few steps to get back to where we were to make it work again. So does anyone have any questions on company sponsors or things in the past that they'd like to see different from sponsors?
Colin, I have one question, and you talked a little bit about really making sure that, you know, the students know that you guys have internship opportunities. How do you guys handle, you know, letting the students know about internship opportunities or potentially hiring a student that's graduating? How do you guys handle that?
We basically offer it out of the gate once we have students that are juniors and seniors. Last year, we didn't have any juniors or seniors on our team. So that's kind of the level where we usually open up the internship, due to the state of Ohio kind of has that age restriction in there. They don't really like for us to have anybody on our shop floor who's under the age of 16. That kind of makes it a little bit challenging. I know they're trying to open that up a bit, and I know you can get parental consent for that, but we try to keep it at the age of 16. So that's usually about their junior year, senior year. And we offer it straight away out of the gates. I've had 2 students from our RoboBots that have come through here on an internship. And we have a unique opportunity this year. We actually have a student from Auburn that'll be on our RoboBots teams helping us out with design, everything like that. So it's unique because he's very advanced in their manufacturing program. But we're always open to internships for students anywhere. I mean, it doesn't necessarily just have to be our RoboBots team. I mean, if there's a RoboBots team out there and you have a student who's interested in an internship and they're looking to get their hands on machining and really kind of get into utilizing software to create their profiles for machining, or software to do design and fixture building, and learning all the new technology out there like our machine metrics, our door is always open. Anybody can come through here. We'll take you for a tour, show you what we do, and you can see everything we have kind of going on. And if the internship fits for the student, they're more than welcome to come here. And we do pay for our internships as well. So that's always really a nice incentive for everybody. You know, we pay pretty decent for the competitive marketplace that's out there for that. So it's not just we'll say, well, what used to be what we always joked was the McDonald's wage for an internship. We try to stay above that to make it worthwhile for them.
I love that. Thanks, Colin. And then the other piece, you know, Roger always talks about getting the parents involved as well. So how do you kind of incorporate that within RoboBots? Do you allow, you know, the parents to come in and see what's happening?
Yeah, we encourage the students to tell their parents to come by, and the parents are encouraged to be involved in the meetings if they want. They're more than welcome. Our door is always open while we do that. So that way then they can see what their high school students are up to in our shop. We encourage them to come by, especially when we're machining parts, so that they can actually see that process as it goes through. And we have several times along the way, we do different things, like we have pizza parties and things like that, so that that's like our review point. We kind of schedule that along. We get like a milestone in our schedule. Then we'll have a pizza party, and it's sort of like our reflection moment part of the way through, so that we can reflect back where we are and where we need to get to. It's like a regrouping at that point. And we try to keep their parents on board as much as possible. I know they all have a lot of things going on too. I know what it was like for my parents running me around when I used to do all kinds of different activities. And, you know, as a parent now, I sit there and think in the back of my head, I'm like, dear God, how did my parents run this shop and run me all over town to do all of my stuff? Because when I get home from the shop and we go and do stuff with the girls, and we take them out, and we'll go to the drive-in or something. We drive them back from the drive-in. I'm like, how did my father ever do this after working all these hours all week? I'm like, how did he sit here and watch a movie and stay awake, get the drive-in with us? You know, and now it's me that's doing it. I'm just like, and now I have a whole new appreciation for that as a parent myself for doing that. And it's one of those things. I mean, I would encourage any of the students, ask your parents to get involved. I mean, especially if where you're at, the sponsor will allow them to come into the building, have them get involved. I mean, it's excellent for them to see what you're doing, other than, you know, we use football practice or football games, or, you know, track practice and track meets. You know, have your parents get involved in this, because this is a pretty big thing. There's a lot of opportunities to step through this program into manufacturing careers, as well as we're trying to see if we can develop here at G&T a way to turn this as a complete milestone for the students where they come through their high school, they can do internships here. And then we want to see if we can encourage them to get involved if they'd like to into that AWT's apprenticeship program and pull them straight through the apprenticeship program into manufacturing. So that way then they can end up with a journeyman's card by the end, and they can have a nice career in manufacturing. Because as everybody thinks, manufacturing is this, grueling hours, lots of long hours. There's a whole bunch of time you got to put in, and that the pay is not that great out there. I can assure you, as a business owner now, the pay in manufacturing is more competitive than it's ever been in the past. And if you know the technology component, and taken the time to learn the technology component, which most of the students in this will learn that, there's a very rewarding career in manufacturing. And I think it turns out to be paramount for the parents to see the technology that their children are getting their hands on at these manufacturers. I mean, when I was 16 years old, there wasn't anybody that was going to let me go out there and play around with $10,000 CAD CAM software and go hit start and run parts on $100,000 CNCs and run hundreds of thousands of dollars in robotic equipment and actually see how this works and how it comes through. That opportunity just didn't exist back then like it does now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Colin. We really appreciate all that you're doing for AWT and being here today with everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the spotlight and share my screen really quickly, just to go over a few more administrative things. So for this year, our competition for 2022 is Saturday, April 30th, 2022, and we are scheduled to be at Lakeland Community College in their auxiliary gym. Like Colin was saying, the parents getting involved is really, really important. So we encourage all the parents to be there. It's really, really an awesome day to see, the competition, and it's really an exciting time. The interview and documentation process that I talked about earlier for 2022, that'll be on Friday, April 29th, 2022. That will also be at Lakeland Community College, the auxiliary gym building Y, where the competition takes place. We'll just be doing our safety checks and interviewing that day. So that's something as a, coach, just to remember to, get those travel permits, those consent forms, and then think through transportation for both of those days. Saturday, the competition day, is normally like a 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. time commitments. Obviously, it's all based off of how long you stay into the competition. But we tell everyone to schedule the full day for that. And then the Friday for the interview and documentation process, that's normally a half day. And I'll talk through how you kind of schedule for that. So on the other administrative piece, what AWT does is we provide a team Google folder for you to keep everything organized, just because there is a lot of forms and things like that. So this is an example of our 2021 forms. Stevie and I will email out each team your Google form. So if you don't hear from us next week with your Google form link, please just send us an email and say, hey, Juliana, where's my Google form link? So this is Auburn Career Centers, just as an example. So when you log into your Google form, you'll have the due dates. So the due dates right here, I'll just pull this up so you guys can see it. But it goes through every single thing that you'll need to complete as a team. So this is the team information sheet. This just allows us to collect information on the team size, information about your school district. This really helps us with a lot of grants. So I know Colin did mention the amounts of, money that sponsors are putting into this. Luckily, if you're a new team, we have a very exciting grant opportunity where you can email me and ask for a starter kit, where it's basically a robotics kit without the weapon. So that way you can get started. That's the first couple year team. So if you were new last year, you can always email me about that. We just want to make sure to make this a little bit easier for new teams coming in. So yeah, you can email me about that kit. So that's why the team information is really important. We normally email out reminders to complete this information. Adult and student waivers. So any adult that's volunteering with the students or will be there on competition day will need to complete this. So if they're just a parent coming to watch, that's fine. But if they're actually volunteering with the team, we really need those adult waivers filled out just to make sure, everyone is safe and understands, the safety protocol in that, especially for the students as well. We want to make sure that all of the students have their waivers completed before competition day. We put the deadline as January 31st for both of these. If for some reason you can't complete the forms by those deadlines, just email me and give me a heads up, but we will need those completed before competition day. Documentation. We did put this into, Julie did the whole presentation about documentation. This will be, we want to upload it the week before the competition week. So this is not the exact date for this year, but you'll see when you log in what that exact date is. It's normally a week before the competition, just because we want to provide our industry experts with the link so they can judge the documentation online. It's a really rigorous process when you think about someone going through 20 pages of judging for 5 different teams. So really respect that deadline. You'll actually submit your documentation in the Google form. I'll show you where in your Google folder, and I'll show you where you'll do that in a moment here. But you do not need to bring a physical copy. So this says, don't forget a physical copy. We've decided to change that this year. All you need to do is upload an electronic copy. You do not need to bring a physical copy like we have in years past. So that's something new for this year. T-shirt order forms, we put the deadline by February 20th. A lot of teams already have someone who provides their T-shirts. If that's the case, that's completely fine. And so that's completely fine. So you can keep doing that. But if you would like to order T-shirts through AWT, you can do that. Just please respect that February 20th deadline so that we can get enough T-shirts for everybody. This one, when we were talking about the Friday interview and documentation, the interview and safety check day, this is how you sign up for your time slot. So like I was saying, it's normally a 2 to 3 hour time slot that you sign up for on the Friday before. So really go in here, do the link and sign up for your time. So that way, again, we're respecting the industry experts' times who are volunteering for the interview piece of the competition. So I'm going to go back and just show you the rest of the folder here. So you get all of the due dates. Here's all of the forms links. So just if you wanted to print this out for your students or something like that, this gives them all of the forms links. You'll receive the handbook. So the handbook goes into every piece of the competition. I often tell people go ahead and send that to parents to understand the commitment that they're making, as well as the sponsors and the coaches. So this is just an overview guide of everything. The kickoff material, so everything that Julie went over, Ron went over, Colin went over, we'll put that in here, as well as the recording of this kickoff. We have the safety rules in here. So this is really important. We do go by the NRL safety technical regulations and the inspection regulations. However, Scott Cole, who is our RoboBot safety person, he gave us the list that he uses completely for everything. So this is no surprise of what your safety check that Friday will be on. Everything is laid out completely. So really, when you're designing your bot and thinking through everything, please, please, please look at this first, because we don't want a team to come in and say, well, I didn't know that, the spinning weapons or parts had to come to a full stop within 30 seconds of power loss. I didn't know that was a requirement. We do put this in here because we want you to think about that while you're building your robot. So it's very, very important to review those rules ahead of time. So the suggested bill of supplies. So we did put this in here. These are just different places where you can go for the parts and pieces that you're looking for, other helpful websites that you can go to. So just things where if you're looking for something, check out those sources. And then this is where you would submit your documentation. So again, when you're talking about that electronic documentation, please, please, please submit it in here. It's very important because this is where we go to pull all of the information for our industry experts. And you can see this is exactly how we score. So there's no surprises as far as how our documentation is scored. We want the teams to know all this in advance. So really take a look at this while you're filling out your documentation, because again, we don't want it to be a surprise to you on how your documentation is rated. This is an example documentation. So thank you, Madison Athena, for putting this in here. This just gives you a good overview. And then the interview scoring sheet. So this is for your interview that Friday before. You can again see how exactly your team is going to be scored. And then a lot of our teams like to go on to the National Robotics League or NRL competition. So these are their details on how their documentation is scored in their interviews. Obviously, our competition is very similar, but I always tell teams, if you're going to go to both competitions, just review both of these materials, so that way you can, ace both in that way. So that is what I wanted to show you there. And I'm going to show you one more thing, just so that you can see a design type of feature that you can use. So this is really helpful because I know Colin was talking about SolidWorks. You heard SolidWorks and CAD CAM software in a lot of people's presentations. So Onshape, this is a great tool because it's all online. It is free. You can have an educational access to it. And it helps because it's, this 3D, CAD/CAM software that you can go ahead and design things on here. So that way you can, go through all this and share it with your company sponsor. And it's helped a lot of teams. So that way you're not paying out of pocket for anything. And that way it's easy to share all of this because it all stays on the web-based model. So you can sign in from any computer. So whether you're at the industry sponsor or, somewhere else, you can share your designs. So those are just a few helpful tips that I wanted to show you on how you do a lot of this. And for the last piece of our RoboBots kickoff here, I did want to show you the video that Stevie created with Robert Hale, who is the RoboBots coach for Freedom Corporation, for Lake Catholic and Lakeshore Compact. Robert has been very successful at recruiting students and getting them really excited about RoboBots. So I wanted you to hear from him as kind of our last piece of the kickoff today.
And then 3, what advice would you give to a new RoboBots coach?
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, so those are the 3 ones.
Yeah, make it fun. Make it fun and be honest. It's that simple. The best way to keep anybody interested in something is to entertain them. You just can't sit there and say, we'll do this and do that and just, everything be blank. You know what I mean? You got to have, put some heart into it. So when they see what you're putting into it, then they're going to want to do the same thing. It's that simple. If I just come in there with a generic attitude, what do I expect? So you've got to be able to reach out, let them know, and always teach them, treat them with respect. Stay on their level. Don't ever try and look down on them. Period. Just because they're young and they're going to be achievers, and you just got to make sure you tell them that.
I love it. That's awesome. For the other question I wanted to ask you is, how do you keep the kids engaged or excited about the whole program?
Oh, it's easy. I just sit there and tell them we have an objective. The objective is to kill and destroy their robot. So you have to put that excitement into them. You have to tell them. You have to let them know what's coming. You have to challenge them. If you don't challenge them, then you're wasting your time and all your efforts. So one of the things you have to do is you have to challenge them. And when they do a good job, then you go ahead and, you don't hesitate to say, you know what, you did a great job. Give them a pat on the back. plain and simple.
That's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the goals that you set and the rewards that you provide?
Well, so with the goals, as a matter of fact, I just set one Saturday. Okay, this is our 3rd week. We have 8 weeks up until we go into Christmas break. So what I've done was I said, listen, we need a rolling robot. I don't care about the weapon right now, but what I do care about is we need a rolling robot. If we can get that rolling robot by this date, then I will reach out to the company. A couple of years ago, we went to the think tank in Cleveland, which the kids thought was a great idea. They had a great time, okay? And unfortunately, because of COVID, the think tank was closed last year prior to us shutting everything down. But I had reached out to the company and they had agreed to entertain the idea of taking the kids and dropping them off or having them dropped off at the bowling alley. And we spend a Saturday morning bowling, having fun, acting like kids again. So that's the goal and that's the reward. And then the goal at the end is to make the complete robot, to go into battle and to win, to walk out with our names on that trophy. And we will fight tooth and nail to do that. I promise them that I give them 110% of everything I have. And all I ask them is to give me the same thing. And I promise you, sometimes they give me more. And, that's whenever I look at all of them, just tell them how proud I am. That's it.
That's awesome. I love it. And how do you take the RoboBots program and relate it back to an actual career in manufacturing?
So, to be honest with you, there's going to be some kids who's not going to go to college. We know that. I didn't have the opportunity, And what we try to do is we try to get these kids in here. We give them the opportunity to make something. Listen, I've always looked at machining as being an artist. We start out with a block of metal, and at the end, we have a piece of art. And that's what I try to explain to them. So when we're sitting there doing some machining on a Bridgeport or on a lathe, I tell them, I say, we're going to start with a block of metal, but we're going to make a piece of art when we're done. So, you've got to entertain them with that idea, and then you've got to push them to see what their future could be. Because like I said, some of these kids just don't have the opportunity. This is a great trade. This is a great trade. Listen, you're going to have opportunities in your life, that you'll probably never have if you did something else. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I love it. I do. I enjoy doing what I do, and I enjoy working with these kids. When I first started to do this, everybody was like, you want to work with the kids? Absolutely. Because I want these kids, just like everybody else, to make something out of their lives. Give them mechanical skill that they are lacking right now. That's my goal. And, one of the other things I want to touch on is I'm a coach, and Brian's a coach. This is my 3rd year doing this. And you sit there, and people say, well, what do you get out of it? Why would I want to be a coach? Listen, to me, it's the greatest thing in the world, because you get these young kids to come in, and you hear their stories, and you can relate to them. And then, next thing you know, you have a bond. You know what I mean? I had 4 kids graduate last year, and I miss them. I do. It's because of the bond that you develop over the years, of doing this, So, do I get something out of this? Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I'll be honest with you, if we could get more coaches and just let them have the opportunity to see what they'll get out of this, you know, I promise you they'll enjoy it.
The last question I have for you, Robert, is can you talk about some of the successes that you've seen through the program, through students maybe gaining technical knowledge, employment?
I have a wonderful story. So we have this young girl, I want to say her name is Anastasia. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So when she started here last year, if I'm over on one Bridgeport working with kids, and Matt was working with some other kids, and I heard her say, I can't do that, I'm scared. So immediately I told Matt, I said, come over here and work with these kids, I'm going to work with her. So I walk over there and I said, what's wrong? She goes, I'm afraid. I said, what are you afraid of? Well, I'm just afraid. I said, first of all, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. I'm not going to let nothing hurt you. I promise you that, right? I said, now watch me. And I took the handle and I turned the handle and turned a little bit of metal. Came back, I said, okay, you try it. She was very hesitant to do it. And then all of a sudden she did it, right? True story. I worked with her throughout that whole day. She'd hit the air hose and practically jumped to the ceiling. It scared her so bad. 3 weeks later, I have her training other people how to run that machine. Now you guys wonder what I get out of that by being a coach. I get that. That's what I get. That's what I get, period. So about 4 months later, 3 months later, her parents come in. Now anytime a parent comes in, I always have a conversation with them. I thank them for allowing their child to come and spend time with us. Before I could even open my mouth, the father and the mom look at me and says, I don't know what you did. I'm looking at them like, I don't understand what you're talking about. They said, I have never seen my daughter have more confidence in herself than she does now. I don't know what you've done in 3 months' time. Whatever it is, don't stop. Right? So that's another thing I get out of it. Yeah, I'm selfish. I am, because I enjoy this and I enjoy seeing these kids succeed. So what this does is it gives these kids an opportunity to try something, see if they like it, and we give them a future. That's what we're doing. We're giving them a future, okay? And hopefully if everything goes the way we want it to go, they'll graduate high school, then they'll come here. We have a system in place where they can come here. We'll put them through 4 years of school, and then after that, they'll work for us. But while they're going to school, they'll also work for us. So we have a goal, and the goal is to just make this a better place. That's all there is to it. So.
I love it. Great job. Anything else you want to say before?
Well, before I do leave, I want to thank AWT, and I want to thank everybody else. This isn't the coaches, you know, this is the teachers that come here every week. You know, I have a lot of respect for these teachers that come in here. They spend so much time, and I praise them when they're here. You know, they spend so much time with these kids. You know, you would think that after being around all these kids for 5 days, they'd want to just kind of stay away, but they don't. So kudos to the teachers. Kudos to everybody that's involved in AWT, because if it wasn't for you and everybody's hard work, we wouldn't have the success that we have.